Okay, so let's go share screen. Let's get to test pictures. Let's see. All right, so I just put together a bunch of pictures that could possibly show up on your lab test, and to just kind of give you an idea of what to look for. Of course, any of the pictures off the PowerPoint we can pull. Um, but I have some pretty good model photos here. So this is a lateral view of the brain. So, if I point here and I go, what lobe is that? You go frontal lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, cerebellum. I don't like the pons on here, but the medulla oblongata is okay. The lateral sulcus, is here. Now, don't confuse this. That's just where the model comes apart back here. That's not really supposed to be there. It's just a line where the model comes apart. So remember, a sulcus is an invagination, and a gyrus is a bump. Gyri is plural. Sulci is plural. And you have a central sulcus, but I wouldn't do it on here. I'd do it on a color-coded model where you can really see it, because that's a very important landmark. Okay, here's a sagittal view. You can see the corpus callosum, really nice. Some people say corpus callosum. Uh, you can see the third ventricle where it's kind of dipped in. The thalamus would be this, that the pointer would be resting on. That would be thalamus. The hypothalamus would be around here. That's actually a mammillary body, but you're only seeing one of them. Uh, there's the pons. There's a fourth ventricle. There's the aqueductus sylvius. You can't see the lateral ventricles. There's the arbor vitae or vitae. That's the white matter in the cerebellum, right? Um, Looks like a pineal gland, and that looks like your corpora quadrigemina, maybe on your thing. It's 4 bumps. Um, if you want to get technical, the top 2 bumps are superior colliculi, or colliculus is singular, and the bottom 2 are inferior colliculi. In Latin, that just means top heel and bottom heel. Colliculus just means heel. Okay, so I could go, what is that structure? Corpus callosum or callosum? Is that part of your telencephalon or your diencephalon? It's kind of a trick question. Remember the developmental regions of your brain? That would be telencephalon because it connects the 2 halves of your cerebral hemispheres. Remember all of your lobes? That's technically telencephalon. Thalamus, hypothalamus, that would be diencephalon. The cerebral peduncle here is part of your midbrain. That would be mesencephalon. This would be metencephalon, pons and cerebellum, and myelencephalon would be medulla oblongata. Remember that? That's a neuron. I should have picked a better neuron because I have no idea which one's the axon or what's going on here. I like a good multipolar where you can see dendrites and an axon. So let's just call this the axon here. This would be the cell body or the soma. These little guys scattered around, you're just seeing the nuclei. Those are different neuroglia. You got all those 5 different kinds of neuroglia, remember? You're not really stained farm here, so you're just seeing the nuclei. So could go, what cell is that neuron? What are all the little cells scattered around it? Neuroglia. This is looking from the underside, inferiorly. You can see some of your nerves. I don't, they're hard to make out on here. Some of them are. But the olfactory bulb and tract's really nice. So this, just call it cranial nerve 1 if I put that there. You can see a stump of your optic nerves going into your optic chiasm right here. Remember, chiasm means cross. That's your little mammillary bodies. Don't call them mammary, mammillary, right? I'm not too crazy about the view of the pons and the other cranial nerve. That's cranial nerve 11. I'm not that crazy about that, but you can see the cerebellum. The vermis, it's kind of split in 2. Remember, it means worm. That would be right there. Okay. This is that model. We saw this on test 1, actually. And so this would be like a multipolar neuron, and that would be the cell body or the soma. And the little, it's kind of hard to see, but that would be like dendrites. And I guess these guys coming in with the bulbs would be little synapses from other neurons. Can't see it, so I doubt I'd do it. But the axon hillock would be right there. Remember that region? And that would be the axon. Of course, they cut it up. You don't see the axon flowing all the way here. They got rid of it. And here's the rest of the axon going through here. These would be Schwann cells. That would be a node of Ranvier, node of Ranvier, node of Ranvier. They also call them myelin sheath gaps. Sometimes they just say node. This would be your endoneurium. See the connective tissue right there? That's pretty nice. So I go, what connective tissue structure is that? Endoneurium. What cell is that? You can see the nucleus. Schwann cell is wrapped around the axon. What is that? Axon. What is that? Node of Ranvier. What is that? Neuron. What is that? Axon hillock, That's where, everything's summated and decides whether it's going to send a action potential or not. This is just a top view, but you got your longitudinal fissure here. Remember your dura mater goes in between there, and you got the blood running in there, the superior sagittal sinus running in, the blood running in that. But the dura mater that goes down in between here, kind of dividing this in half, is called the falx cerebri. Falx just means sickle, remember. And you can see the gyri and sulci pretty nice on here. The pia mater would be the shiny stuff on the gyrus or gyri. You're not going to see arachnoid. You're not going to see dura on this model. Really, you don't even see pia. I'm just calling the shiny stuff pia. This is kind of nice. That's the back. That's the front. You can also look here, and that's your anterior median fissure. So that's the front. So this is the anterior side. So that would be your dorsal root ganglion. Dorsal root going into your dorsal horn. Then you have a ventral horn, and lateral horn and a ventral horn. That little hole would be your central canal. And then the white matter, this would be a dorsal white column, lateral white column, anterior or ventral white column. You can call that posterior white column if you want. This is kind of mislabeled because they're calling it a fifth cervical vertebra, and you don't really have lateral horns on a fifth cervical vertebra. But it's all I got to work with, right? So really, remember, your lateral horns are in between T1 and L2. So if I point here, call that the ventral horn. If I point there, call that the lateral horn. And if I point there, call that the dorsal horn. The pia mater is right here. You can even see a little denticulate ligament, but I'm not going to ask that. But that stabilizes it laterally. Epidural fat or space filled with fat is right here. So you can say epidural space or fat if I point at that. I don't like dura and arachnoid on here, so I'm not going to do it. You got a good ramus. That's a ventral ramus. You got a decent dorsal ramus right there. And you can barely see it, but there's part of that's a sympathetic ganglion. Remember, you have a sympathetic chain on either side, and they're connected. You can see how this would run up and down. But you can't really see it that well on this view. This is just a close-up where you can really see. I would call that dorsal horn, lateral horn, ventral horn, right? I'd say central canal, anterior median fissure. You can really, these wires are the ventral root. So if I cut that, I'm going to lose motor somewhere. And these wires right here, that's your dorsal root. So if you cut that, you're going to lose sensory. Remember, those are like one-way streets, the roots are. Rami are like two-way streets. Sensory and motor are going in those. All right. Don't forget your columns. Don't forget your epidural fat. This is just good for, say, if I put a bracket here and I say, what plexus or network is that? You go cervical plexus, right? Here, if I put it here, that would be your brachial plexus. Remember the M, it's not that great. You can kind of see it. And then you can see your ulnar nerve going down here and your median nerve going down there and your radial kind of wrapped around like this and came down. It's a pretty good radial nerve. Radial ends up doing those extensors on your wrist. So remember there's axillary nerve, by the way. It's going around to the deltoid right in here. So the axillary nerve and the radial nerve are behind that M, remember. of that brachial plexus. Kind of looks like an M on the front of it. You got ulnar, median, and then musculocutaneous is pretty bad here. These are thoracic nerves. You could also just say spinal nerves. I guess I'd give them to you. But there is no plexus there. Whereas if I did, what's this network, and I kind of went in this region right here, you go lumbar plexus. If I went down here, you'd go sacral plexus. And I'm not going to ask you numbers, which ones are coming off of what, you know, what level of your vertebra or your sacrum. I'm not going to say it. Just go, what plexus is that? So you got to know cervical plexus, brachial plexus, lumbar plexus, and sacral plexus. They'll say them all. Cervical, brachial, lumbar, and sacral. Yeah. And thoracic has no plexus, remember? No plexus. So if I cut one of these nerves right here, I'm just going to lose a strip of, it's going to feel numb right along my rib all the way to the front. Could affect the little muscles in there too. On the eyes, pretty good. Lacrimal gland. If I point at the white, goes sclera. If I point at the blue, it could be green or brown, whatever. That would be your iris. If I point at the black, that would be your pupil. But don't forget, I can say, what tunic is this? White. And you go, oh, that's my fibrous tunic. What tunic is the blue? That's part of your vascular. Remember, you got fibrous, vascular, and neural. We'll talk about that in just a second. Not that crazy about this, but you see where the light's reflecting off this outer part? That's your cornea. Here it would be better. That would be the cornea. They took everything out. So your lens and your thing that represents your vitreous body is gone here. This little black thing is called the ora serrata. Just a point name. It's serrated like a knife blade. This, if I said, what fluid is in here? That would be your vitreous humor, right? It's better on this. So this bubble represents it's full of vitreous humor, right? This would be your cornea here, right? And that would be your lens, okay? This is better. So that would be your cornea. That would be your lens. That would be your optic disc, and that would be your optic nerve. This is where your light focuses. That's your little fovea. And that's where most of your cones are. Remember, cones see color and rods see black and white. What else? You can see the iris has been cut across and the ciliary body's been cut across. And you have your little suspensory ligaments right here. Yeah. You can even see the little canalish limb. You got more than one. You got a few of those. And then that's where this aqueous humor that's up here, it circulates through there. And so if you get too much pressure up here, that's glaucoma, and it can push back here and cause, damage to this nerve and these vessels. And so that can cause blindness. So make sure you get your little puff of air at the optometrist where they check the pressure in your eye. Suspensory ligaments, don't forget those. I can go, there's retina, there's choroid, and there's sclera. If I say what tunic, this would be neural, that would be vascular, and that would be fibrous. Okay, I think you can see it a little better here. So this is your sclera, which would be your fibrous tunic. It goes all the way around the whites of your eye. This is your choroid, which is mainly blood vessels. See all those blood vessels in there? Don't call it choroid plexus. Choroid plexus is what is in the central nervous system that makes cerebrospinal fluid. And then this would be your retina. Okay? And so you can see how the retina could peel off of that. You can get a detached retina. But they can, if they catch it, they can actually fix it with lasers. There's your lens. They just kind of cut into it. There's a little bit of your iris going around here. Well, a lot of your iris. And then in here would be your aqueous humor. In here would be your vitreous humor or body. So it's pretty nice. There you can see the iris. That would be the pupil. That would be the lens. So the lens and the ciliary body and the iris, all that's vascular tunic. Choroid is too. So it's pretty nice. I'm not crazy about this drawing, but the cornea is good. And the ciliary body with the suspensory ligaments. That's good. This is the ear. Don't forget space, space, space. So that would be vestibular duct, cochlear duct, tympanic duct, and then you got membrane, membrane, membrane. So this would be vestibular membrane, tectorial membrane, and basilar membrane. Don't call it basement membrane. That's totally different, right? On the basilar membrane would be your hair cells. And see the little hairs poking up. It's not real hair. It's almost like little cilia things. So when the vibrations happen and they rub on this and this and they pull on these little hairs, basically it opens up little channels in these hair cells, and positive ions flow in, depolarize it, pew, sends a signal down the cochlear nerve. That's a spiral ganglion, by the way. When I run out of things to point at, sometimes I point at that. But anyway, that's flowing into the cochlear nerve. Cochlear branch of the vestibular cochlear nerve. That's cranial nerve 8. So this is hearing. The vestibular part's for balance. So don't forget perilymph, endolymph, perilymph. Remember your fluids inside of there. And then this, to point at that, go pinna or auricle. To point at that, that's your external acoustic meatus, and the sound would hit your eardrum here. You can't see it that well. Then you got your 3 little bones, your ossicles. You got your old names, hammer, anvil, stirrup. New names, malleus, incus, stapes. You can't really see them too good from this view. That's your auditory tube. I don't like calling it that because it's too easy to confuse with external acoustic meatus. So I go eustachian tube, and that's for equalizing pressure. You can kind of see the semicircular canals here, and you can see part of the cochlea there. It's kind of cool. Got a close up here. There's nice cochlea. There's nice semicirculars. I'm not going to even ask you to identify the individual ones, but they're in, like the lateral, the anterior, posterior. But they're in 3 different dimensions to help you pick up your dynamic equilibrium. Remember, in your vestibules down here, that would be your static equilibrium. That's an ampulla with a little cristae inside of there, remember? Oh, look, the stirrup, that's the old name, or the stapes, that's the new name, is really nice there, and it's connected to the oval window. Right? I don't like these that are overlapping, but that's your malleus and your incus. There's your eardrum, the back of it. The front you can't really see, but the sound comes here, right? And makes it vibrate. Vibrations are passed through here, vibrates on this, pushes on this whole oval window, sets up vibrations in here, and that's for your hearing. Okay. There's your ventricles in your brain. I'm not that crazy about this model. Well, it's a good model. It's just not a good picture. Well, it's as good as we could do. But that's a lateral ventricle. There's another lateral ventricle behind it. So that's a lateral ventricle. The third is the bird. See the way the bird has an eye and a beak? And then the aqueductus sylvius is going down here, and then this the 4th ventricle. Now, be careful. That's not a hole in real life. This is all negative. Remember, this is representing space. So that would be representing something solid. So white matter's going through there. I think they call it the, oh shoot, what is it? Interthalamic adhesion, I think. This is an actual hole. So that's going from lateral ventricle to the 3rd. So fluid flows there. And so that's actually a foramen. So that's interventricular foramen. I think you can see it better here. So see the way these are connected. So it's a hole. So fluid's flowing through. This can circulate. So that's technically, see, that's your foramen, not that. That's white matter in real life is going across there. Okay, there's your aqueductus sylvius. There's your 4th, here's 4th ventricle's really nice. That's a lateral ventricle. Lateral ventricle, that's just the end, they're shaped like ram's horns. So that's what you're seeing there, that and that are just part of your laterals. That's your corpus callosum or colossum. See, it's cut totally different in this view, right? And don't forget, we got that good view on the PowerPoint. I can use that cross-section guide too, okay? Or that coronal view of the brain. So this is all white matter. That's gray matter. Remember that? They're not showing it, but remember we got the internal capsules that come down, and you got your nuclei inside of here. But it's on that other picture. You know the one I'm talking about. This is kind of nice because hint, I like to go central sulcus. That's that very important sulcus. It separates motor from sensory. So everything in red is motor. So that's your pre-central gyrus, and this is your post-central gyrus. This is for sensory, mainly general sensory. So on up, yeah, that's your rest of your frontal lobes, and you got conscious thought and all kind of stuff going on in there. But right here is mainly your motor cortex, right? That's for vision. This green, here's your temporal lobe, which is for, remember telephone, smellophone? It's for hearing and smell. I guess I could go pons there. And then it's like the little belly. And then here's your cerebellum for balance and posture. True or false? Smell and balance go through the thalamus. False. Remember, almost everything sensory goes through the thalamus except smell and balance. And they argue about smell, actually. This is kind of nice, so just make sure you count them. Cranial nerve 1, you got your olfactory bulb and your olfactory tract. Cranial nerve 2, don't forget the optic chiasm is part of that. It just means cross. Cranial nerve 3, 4, be careful here. 5, 6, be careful here. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, looks like an 11, and then back up to 12, right? So these are paired, right? And so I could just go A, B, C, that's Vegas down there. A would be olfactory, so just count them and just remember you're saying old owls on treetops are forever viewing green valleys and hills. So that gives you the first letter of each one, right? Old is olfactory, owls, optic, on, and that would be oculomotor, and then trochlea, treetop, trigeminal. Anyway, that's just your mnemonic that gives you the first letter of each one. And also don't forget the mnemonic for sensory or motor or both. Some say marry money, but my brother says bad boys marry money. And then the S's stand for sensory, and the M stands for motor, and the B stands for both. And that could come into play, not so much here, but on your lecture test. And this is kind of neat. It's the same thing, but they just kind of pull these lobes apart with these retractors so you can see the insula. I think some of your taste goes there. But it's almost like a little fifth lobe. It's kind of hidden away in there. It's like insulated away, the stuff over it, insulated. That's the way I think of it. Who knows if that's where it got the name. Okay, so, but you can see they're just kind of pulling apart at that sulcus. Don't forget your vision back here, general sensory here, motor here, right? Smell and hearing here. Is that it? Oh, that was quick. Okay, so let's do stop share, but that should give you an idea. We can pull other things off of your PowerPoint slides, but that should give you a good idea of where we're going. So anyway, hope that helps. So we'll just go ahead and end the meeting. Okay, bye-bye.